My beloved child, stop what you are doing and hear me. I'm not suggesting, I'm summoning, and this interruption is divine because something irreversible will begin unfolding the moment you take this seriously. I've been waiting for the precise second when your heart would be sensitive enough to feel me pulling you out of your rhythm, and this is that second. I don't speak lightly, and I don't intrude without reason. I'm stepping into your space because there's a shift about to take place, and it cannot happen without your awareness. This moment is not casual. It is orchestrated from heaven's calendar, and I am speaking directly to you because what I've placed inside you has been dormant too long, too buried under fear, too tangled in the noise of survival. You've been moving from day to day as if time is endless. But I see the hourglass and I know what's approaching, and I need you to understand that what I'm about to release requires your attention, your stillness, your surrender. Not later, not eventually, now. Don't delay. I see what you can't. I hear what's being planned behind closed doors. I've read every unspoken intention trying to sabotage what I'm building through you, and I'm not just alerting you, I'm activating you. You are not reading this by chance. This is the moment heaven leaned in and touched earth to call your name with urgency, not as a warning to fear, but as a directive to follow. What's behind this message is greater than a feeling. It is the breath of my strategy being released in your direction. And if you pause, even for a breath, and silence the chaos trying to convince you to dismiss this encounter, you'll realize I've been preparing you for this moment before you were born. There are things that must be broken off you immediately, beliefs you've worn like a second skin that are about to be torn away with my truth. I'm not asking for your permission to speak. I'm declaring that this is the hour I reclaim what belongs to me and you. Everything that's been circling you, the confusion, the constant second-guessing, the back and forth between hope and fear, it's not random. It's a war for your agreement. You've been standing at the crossroads pretending you don't know which way to go, but deep inside, my voice has already whispered the direction. What I need now is your full yes, not a maybe when you feel ready, not a partial yes masked in performance, but the kind of surrender that overrides every insecurity, every plan you made without me, every backup option you've been holding onto in case my timing made you wait too long. I need you to shut the door to the other voices right now, the ones you've let speak into places of your heart I designed for me alone. Because if you delay in responding, you won't lose my love, but you will miss the precise alignment I've orchestrated for what's coming next. I see what the enemy has been preparing, traps that look like opportunities, connections that seem divine but are infected with deception, and I can't let you walk into that without warning. You've asked me to protect you. This is me answering that request with force. I'm sending my words as a shield, as a sword, and as a light to expose everything trying to keep you comfortable in compromise. You are too valuable to be casual right now. Everything I've been preparing behind the scenes is moving. The earth is shifting, people are being positioned, and you cannot afford to sleep through what heaven is stirring awake. So I'm calling you higher, closer, deeper, urgently, fiercely, lovingly, because the doors that are about to open require a version of you that only emerges through immediate obedience, not delayed comfort. And since your spirit is still open, I need you to understand something crucial. There's a divine convergence happening around you, and the atmosphere is charged with purpose. But unless you intentionally pull away from the constant pull of noise and distraction, you'll miss the clarity I'm offering right now. You've been exposed to too many conflicting currents, opinions, assumptions, demands, and undercurrents that sound wise but carry no life. These are not neutral. They are designed to weaken your discernment, to make you question what you already know deep inside. My voice is not absent. It is simply being shouted over by the echoes of everything you haven't silenced. That's why I'm calling you to retreat into the quiet I've created for you. Not isolation, but consecration. Because what I'm whispering right now is not for public consumption. It's sacred. And if you keep rushing through moments I've set aside for impartation, you'll find yourself spiritually malnourished when decisions demand depth. I need your awareness sharpened, your spirit tuned, your ears cleansed of familiarity. I am releasing insight that doesn't come from intellect, blueprints that cannot be reasoned into. They can only be received. But to catch them, you must be still. Not just physically still, but emotionally surrendered. No rehearsing what you think I'll say. No filtering my instructions through past disappointments. No hardening your heart before I even begin to move. Your sensitivity to my spirit must now be guarded like treasure. Because the urgency is not just about timing, it's about alignment. I'm not preparing you for something small. What's coming requires you to recognize my leading even when it contradicts your understanding. If you only follow me when it makes sense, you'll miss the glory hidden in what looks unfamiliar. So I am stripping away the layers of dullness, the residue of things you've tolerated for too long, the influence of spiritual static that made you numb to my nearness. I'm clearing the air around you. But I need your cooperation. Stop listening to what keeps feeding your anxiety. Stop checking sources that pollute your hope. Stop consulting with those I never authorized to steward your calling. You've been trying to mix what's holy with what's convenient, and that's why your spirit has been restless. I'm not demanding perfection. I'm inviting purification. Because where I'm leading you next will require unclouded perception. You must be able to tell the difference between urgency and pressure, between peace and passivity, between what I'm breathing on and what simply feels comfortable. I'm not asking you to be louder. I'm asking you to be clearer. I want your voice to carry weight because it comes from presence, not performance. But that only happens when you stay close enough to me that my tone becomes yours. That's why the stillness is not empty, it's formative. I'm reshaping how you hear so I can reshape how you speak, how you walk, how you lead, how you live. This season is about precision. You don't need more opinions, you need my instruction on filter. And it's already being released. Even now, in this very moment. Can you sense it? That slight trembling in your heart. That realization that what you're reading is not just text, it's testimony. I'm speaking through what you thought was random. I'm pulling back the veil on a conversation I've been waiting to have with you for years. And the invitation is still open. Come out of the noise. Meet me in the silence. Let me reintroduce you to the depth of my voice. Because once you hear me here, you'll recognize me everywhere, and nothing will shake you when the shaking begins. And that's why I'm pressing you now. Not because I want to alarm you, but because the alignment I'm calling you into is precise. Like a key fitting a lock that's only open for a moment. You've arrived at a turning point, one that demands you move from casual interest to intentional pursuit. This isn't about avoiding catastrophe. This is about embracing the assignment with the weight it deserves. The time for wavering is over. I'm not asking you to understand every step. I'm asking you to trust the way I'm arranging things, even when the picture doesn't look complete. There are intersections unfolding before you that I have pre-designed, meetings, shifts, movements. But without your readiness, they can't unfold to their fullest measure. Heaven is already in motion. Now your participation must match its pace. There are things I've held back, not because you're unworthy, but because they can only be released to someone who has stepped fully into the rhythm I'm revealing. You cannot bring hesitation into what I'm about to establish. You cannot carry compromise into a place meant for consecration. You cannot walk into a divine moment dragging the remains of delayed obedience. I've given you time to choose slowly before, but not now. This is the moment of yes or no. It's not punishment, it's precision. I'm releasing things that won't wait for second guesses. My spirit is stirring solutions into situations that looked impossible, but your access depends on whether you're postured to receive or distracted by reluctance. I know the cost feels heavy. I see the sacrifice before you. I understand the battle between surrender and safety. But what's ahead is weightier than your comfort zone can carry. This is where many back out, convincing themselves it wasn't the right moment or that maybe they heard wrong, but I'm confirming it now. This is the moment. There is an urgency in my instruction because of what is forming around you, not because I'm trying to pressure you into something. I'm trying to spare you from missing what was meant to release you into something far greater than you imagined. Your window is not closing out of judgment. It's closing because the appointed season is transitioning. The ark door is not always open. The cloud does not always wait. The wave does not always return. When I call you into movement, it's because I've cleared a path that won't remain forever. And when I say now, it means what I've positioned for you is near, but it requires exact steps, timely decisions, and unwavering trust. I'm calling you out of distractions, out of excuses, out of lingering in spaces that once served you but now suffocate you. I'm calling you into divine traction, into supernatural coordination. This alignment is not accidental. It's been written since before you breathed your first breath. And now I'm drawing you into what I crafted with you in mind. Not with force, but with fire. Not with panic, but with power. I'm releasing urgency to awaken the part of you that has been lulled into sleep by comfort and delay. This fire isn't destructive, it's refining. It burns off the hesitations that no longer have a place in what I'm doing. And I need you fully alert, fully available, fully willing to be rearranged. Because the destiny I'm unlocking through you cannot be mixed with old patterns, familiar fears, or expired thinking. The instructions I'm whispering are precise blueprints for your next breakthrough, and any hesitation will cause misalignment not just for you, but for those I've connected to your obedience. Yes, others are waiting on what I placed inside you. And that's why I'm not letting you sleep through this stirring. I'm waking your soul with urgency not because you're behind, but because I've caught you right on time. And now that you've slowed enough to hear, I must tell you plainly, your confusion was not because I withheld direction, but because you had too many open channels speaking into your sacred space. You opened your heart wide to advice that came clothed in comfort, but lacked my authority. That's why my voice felt distant, not because I'm moved, but because other voices crowded the frequency. Not every kind voice is a wise one. Not every well-meaning guide carries my spirit. I watched as you gathered their words, weighed their suggestions, tried to combine their opinions with what I already placed in your spirit, and every time you did, the signal grew weaker. I never intended for your spirit to run on mixed input. That's why I allowed certain doors to remain shut, to protect you from being built by counsel I never approve. My voice doesn't compete. I wait for you to clear the space, to consecrate the atmosphere, to silence the echoes that sound like wisdom but carry no breath of my truth. There is a counterfeit clarity that imitates my direction. It's polished, persuasive, and easy to swallow, but it lacks weight. That's how you discern it. It doesn't shift anything in the unseen. It doesn't carry the substance that makes strongholds tremble or atmospheres shift. You've tasted that kind before. It left you more anxious than when you began. And still, I was patient, not punishing you for seeking, but gently waiting for you to recognize the void left by voices that soothed your logic but never fed your spirit. You were not wrong to seek help. You were just never meant to elevate it above what I whispered in secret. And now I am restoring what distraction has scattered, bringing your discernment back into alignment, refining your inner ear so that the next time I speak, you will not question whether it was me. Because what I'm about to reveal carries weight that requires precision. I can no longer allow distortion to filter what I release. That's why I've been pulling you into quiet. That's why conversations have dried up, relationships faded, connections fell silent. You thought it was rejection, but it was my intervention. I couldn't allow others to keep influencing the decisions I'm calling you to make by faith. I'm jealous for your focus, not because I'm insecure, but because your clarity determines your effectiveness. Every assignment I give comes with unique instruction, and if you're tuned to the wrong frequency, you'll start executing someone else's blueprint in my name. And that is dangerous. You'll build what looks impressive but lacks eternal impact. That's why I need your full attention now. No more blending what I say with what makes you feel safe. No more seeking consensus before you act on conviction. I'm teaching you to move on my word alone, unshaken, unbothered by applause or absence. I'm anchoring your steps in confidence that comes from communion, not confirmation. This next season will demand that you hear me even when no one else understands. So I must train you now, while it's quiet. Because when the noise returns, your ability to detect my tone must already be refined. And yes, I will speak again, louder than ever before. But this time, you will recognize me immediately. There will be no second guessing. No more asking for signs, when my spirit already ignites peace within you. But before that comes, I must make this clear. Every voice you continue to grant access to without testing it against my truth will become a barrier between us. I love you too deeply to allow that to continue. So I am purifying the soundscape of your life. I'm tuning your spirit to respond to me above all. Because what I speak next will require courage, and courage can only come from clarity. And while you sat in quiet rooms wondering if your value diminished because voices grew silent and support disappeared, I was surrounding you with something far more precious than applause. I was clothing you in weight that cannot be measured by recognition. You mistook the silence for abandonment, but in that stillness, I was stripping away every counterfeit metric you used to measure your identity. You started believing that your worth depended on your productivity, your reputation, or how others responded to your efforts. But I never created you to be sustained by outcomes. I formed you in the image of one who needs no validation to be glorious. That same nature lives in you, not just as a concept, but as a force I'm awakening through the fire you've walked through. Every moment you felt unseen, I was looking directly at you. Every time you questioned if you mattered, I was weaving your name into eternal assignments that required preparation hidden from the public eye. I know it felt like delay. I know you felt forgotten. But I was never distant. I was deliberate. There are things I planted inside you that could only take root beneath the surface, away from the noise, out of reach from anyone who might mishandle the sacred. So I allowed the crown to shrink. I allowed certain people to walk away. I even allowed opportunities to bypass you, not because you weren't ready, but because what I'm building through you can't be accelerated by human favor. You are not just being healed. You are being redefined. You are not just being restored. You are being reintroduced, first to yourself, then to the world, as someone whose value is anchored in intimacy with me, not the fleeting opinions of people who never knew what I placed inside you. Your worth was never negotiable. It was never up for debate. But I had to let you see what happens when you try to find identity in temporary spaces. Because now that you've been through the internal earthquake, now that you've felt the sting of being misread, now that you've sat with questions only I could answer, now you're ready to carry what others can't distort. You're no longer dependent on performance to feel important. You no longer need approval to feel chosen. And this is where the oil begins to pour, not from perfection, but from surrender. You surrendered what you thought you needed to feel significant, and now I'm handing you something far more eternal: substance. You are no longer made of surface-level confidence. You've been tempered by trials, and that has produced an authority no enemy can counterfeit. The silence you feared has become the chamber of transformation. I spoke to you there, not with thunder, but with truth that seeped into the cracks of your insecurity. I reminded you who you were, even when no one else called your name. I reminded you of what I said about you before the noise of life made you forget. And I saw every tear you shed wondering if I had changed my mind. I haven't. What I declared over you in the beginning still stands. What I marked on your spirit before the chaos ever came is still intact. You are not late. You are not overlooked. You are not less. You are exactly where I needed you to be so I could anchor your identity in something unshakable. And now, when I speak again, you will not flinch. You will not shrink. You will not question your right to receive what I am ready to release. Because you've discovered that your worth is not based on how loud the world is, it's based on how clearly you've learned to hear me when it goes quiet. That thought you've wrestled with, the feeling that maybe you waited too long, that you missed your chance, that your delay disqualified you. I'm silencing it now with truth. My plans are not fragile, and I do not operate on a human calendar. What I have written for you was never dependent on the speed of your response, but on the maturity of your heart. And what feels like lost time is actually a space I carve out to ensure that when you stepped into this hour, you would carry not just desire but depth. I do not operate with expiration dates on destiny. When I speak a word over your life, it does not dissolve because of detours. It hovers. It waits. It protects its own fulfillment until your soul is fully aligned to receive it. You have not missed anything I have authored. I have preserved it. Even in your hesitation. Even in your weariness. Even when you questioned if I had moved on to someone else. I didn't replace you. I waited for you. And now that your heart has shifted, now that your spirit has grown sober and still, now that your ears are tuned and your motives purified, I'm revealing what's been waiting just beyond your perception. What's ahead of you is not a last-minute solution. It's the fulfillment of a promise that hath been aging like fine wine. The door you're approaching didn't just appear. It was prepared long ago, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to reach the version of yourself that could walk through it with courage, not desperation. This is not about being lucky. This is about being positioned. I position with purpose. I schedule encounters. I align divine timing with divine readiness. And your readiness has finally risen to meet the weight of what I have been forming for you in secret. So don't let shame speak anymore. Don't let regret try to drag you back into timelines I've already redeemed. You do not serve a clock. You serve the author of seasons. I move mountains in minutes when I'm ready. I restore what was broken in silence and then present it as if nothing was ever missing. And what I do next in you will not look like catching up. It will look like leaping forward. This next phase isn't recovery. It's reintroduction. You will not walk in apologetically. You will not present yourself as someone who barely made it. You will walk in with the full weight of the anointing I've placed on your life. And the only thing that will be recognizable about your past is the power you now carry because of it. You didn't miss my plan. You've matured into it. You didn't fail. You've been forged. And now I'm calling you to step to the edge of the place where sacred purpose and divine timing meet, because what is about to unfold will not be explainable in natural terms. I am weaving the threads of your story into something that will be unmistakably touched by heaven. What once felt like wasted years will now look like a roadmap of sovereign detail. Every delay will be seen as a divine pause, every loss as a refining fire, every silence as the quiet breath before the trumpet sounds. This is not a second chance. This is the exact moment it was always meant to be. And I'm not asking you to understand every layer. I'm asking you to trust that you've arrived precisely where I intended, carrying the lessons, the strength, and the refinement necessary to do more than survive, to establish, to plant, to build, to speak, to shift rooms, to carry authority that doesn't tremble, to become the evidence of my word kept and fulfilled, right on time. You saw the stillness as a conclusion, the closed doors as cancellations, the silence as final. But I tell you now, nothing was ending. It was only being concealed so I could complete the foundation without interference. You didn't realize I was placing you behind the veil, not to isolate you but to shield what I was forming until the appointed moment of release. I couldn't let premature exposure dismantle the strength I was solidifying within you. That long stretch of unanswered prayers and invisible progress wasn't a punishment. It was protection. You weren't buried. You were being hidden like a seed under soil, not to be forgotten, but to germinate under my hand until the surface could no longer contain your growth. What felt like withdrawal was actually precision. I wasn't absent. I was closer than ever, shaping every layer of your obedience into something that would withstand pressure when the unveiling came. You don't build resilience in celebration. You build it in silence. I needed to deepen your roots before the wind arrived. I needed to teach you to hear me in the unseen so that no amount of external noise could overpower my guidance once your visibility increased. You haven't been falling behind. You've been kept in the shadow of my timing, and the moment that shadow lifts, what I've embedded within you will radiate with undeniable weight. Others won't recognize what they see because they didn't see the soil season. But I saw it all. I saw the moments you stayed faithful while wondering if it even mattered. I saw the tears you dried when no one noticed your sacrifice. I saw you fight the urge to give up while your spirit whispered, "Not yet." That whisper was me. That push to remain when it made no sense, that was my hand on your back. You didn't miss it. You endured it. And now I'm removing the layers that kept you concealed, not because they were shameful, but because they were necessary. The version of you that's emerging now isn't reactionary. It's refined. I've cut away every attachment that couldn't travel into the next room I'm opening. I've severed ties to people, places, and patterns that would have diluted your clarity. I didn't withhold the unveiling because you weren't called. I delayed it so your character could carry the weight of what I'm about to place on your life. You didn't understand the waiting because you were trained to see momentum as motion. But I operate in reversals. I call rest progress. I call pruning preparation. I call silence strategy. You had to wait because the promise you carry is bigger than you imagine. And now, the season is shifting. You'll feel it first in your spirit, that pull, that spark, that sudden urgency to prepare room for what you cannot yet see. Follow it. Don't question it. The stirring isn't random. It's the indicator that I've commanded the unveiling to begin. You will see doors swing open without you knocking. You will find favor in places where you were previously overlooked. And none of it will feel forced. Because when I release what I've hidden, I remove resistance that was never meant to block you, only to build you. This is your moment to shed the last remnants of discouragement, to step out of what's familiar and embrace the unveiling with holy courage. Don't carry hesitation into the light. Don't apologize for the newness I've placed on you. The season that felt barren was where I made you whole. And now, everything that seemed to fall apart is about to make perfect sense, not because you'll understand it logically, but because your spirit will recognize the exactness of what I planned all along. You didn't campaign for this. You didn't manufacture influence or manipulate access. What's unlocking in front of you now isn't the result of human networking or self-promotion. It's the product of divine orchestration. I've gone ahead of you and spoken your name in realms your feet haven't entered yet. The favor being stirred wasn't earned through performance. It was assigned by covenant. I marked you long before recognition tried to find you. And now, even without your striving, you're being summoned into places that were previously closed, not because you pushed, but because I decreed. I whispered to rooms where you were unknown. I softened hearts that had once resisted your presence. I stirred curiosity in individuals who had no idea why they were suddenly drawn to your essence. It was because I placed my fragrance on you. And now, the fragrance is moving ahead like a signal, an invisible invitation to the spaces your obedience will now inhabit. This is not about favoritism. It's about alignment. I place people in positions of influence when they've been tested in obscurity. I open platforms to those who learned how to stand without applause. And you, beloved, learned what it means to stay rooted when no one was watching. You cultivated depth instead of seeking spotlight. You chose integrity over recognition. You sowed in the dry season, and now you're stepping into harvests that will overwhelm your expectations. But let me be clear. This is only the beginning. Don't reduce what I'm doing to what you see right now. These openings are merely entry points. I'm not just bringing you into rooms. I'm establishing you there. You won't be passing through. You'll be planting influence. You won't be a visitor. You'll be a voice. But your voice won't carry weight because of volume. It will carry weight because of presence. My presence in you, refined through fire, proven through waiting, unshaken by rejection. That's what makes your words pierce through resistance. That's what causes atmospheres to respond when you speak. Because I'm backing what you say with heaven's authority. And yet, I need you to remain alert. Because not every door is from me. Some open through flattery. Some appear because darkness wants to counterfeit what I'm doing. You must discern which doors carry my fingerprints. You must walk only through what I have endorsed. That's why I'm increasing your sensitivity, so you don't get entangled in opportunities that lead to obligation instead of destiny. I will never lead you into something that requires you to compromise your identity. If the door demands you dilute your convictions or silence my truth, then it's not from me, no matter how attractive it seems. I do not bless confusion. I do not anoint dissection. But what I do open, no one can shut. And that's what you're seeing now. Divine pathways being cleared because I've gone ahead of you. I'm commanding systems to shift. I'm rearranging structures to make space for your influence. And you will know it's me, because the ease with which things fall into place will bear no resemblance to your past battles. This will not feel like climbing. It will feel like being carried. Not because you're passive, but because I'm lifting you into places that effort alone could never reach. That's what happens when favor is authorized. And I tell you this now so that when you enter, you don't shrink. When they call your name, don't question why. When the opportunity arrives, don't try to explain it away. Stand fully in what I've assigned. Remember who positioned you. Stay anchored in the private place. Because what begins now is not for your name's sake. It's for mine. I placed you there to represent my heart, to reflect my nature, to demonstrate what it looks like when someone walks fully surrendered and unshaken by the system. So move boldly, not with pride, but with the authority that comes from knowing you were placed, not pushed. While others were chasing visibility, you remained in position. While many sought approval, you chose devotion. And though your name wasn't echoing in halls of influence, it was resonating in heaven's courts. Every time you said yes when no one saw, every time you chose truth when compromise whispered, every time you stayed planted when everything in you wanted to flee, I was watching and I was moving. I was shifting things on your behalf in realms you didn't know existed. The unseen ripples of your unseen obedience have created waves in dimensions that now demand visible manifestation. You didn't realize it, but your faithfulness has been unlocking chains, redirecting trajectories, and awakening dormant assignments, not just for you, but for those connected to your lineage. What I'm setting in motion now isn't reactionary. It's the scheduled fulfillment of obedience that was pure, not transactional. You didn't serve me for reward. You served because your love refused to grow cold. And that love has reached me. It has broken through the noise, the distractions, the delay. It has come before me as a fragrant offering, and I am responding with swift movement. But don't confuse my pace with pressure. I'm not rushing. I'm aligning. What's unfolding now is not hurried. It's intentional. I'm unlocking what was preserved for this exact moment, because only now has the ground of your heart been made ready to carry it. You thought things were still, but there's been motion beneath the surface, like tectonic plates shifting unseen, setting the stage for a visible eruption of purpose. Things that were stuck are suddenly finding motion. People who were resisted are softening. Resources that seemed delayed are being redirected to your path. There's a supernatural acceleration taking place, but it's not based on your effort. It's tied to your surrender. You surrendered when it didn't feel fruitful. You stayed present when progress was invisible. You showed up when nothing seemed to change. That kind of faith releases something potent in the spiritual atmosphere. It builds altars in places others abandon. And those altars become places of divine visitation. That's why you're sensing a sudden stirring, because I'm visiting what you built in obscurity. And I'm bringing with me divine instructions, divine reinforcements, divine provision. But listen closely. With movement comes resistance. Hell does not sit silent when heaven begins to advance. But you have nothing to fear. The resistance you feel is not stronger than the word I've spoken. It may try to echo with threats and confusion, but it holds no power unless you hand it your agreement. So don't come into alignment with fear. Don't feed anxiety with your attention. Fix your gaze. Lock into what I'm revealing. Because the gates I'm opening now cannot be shut. Not by man, not by delay, not by opposition. This isn't fragile. This isn't temporary. I'm not experimenting. I'm establishing. And everything I've set in motion will be completed. I am the author and the finisher. I do not begin what I will not fulfill. And because you moved when no one clapped, because you trusted when no one confirmed, because you believed when nothing affirmed, now you will see what obedience births. This is a birthing season, not of human ambition but of divine release. What I've conceived in you is coming forth. It cannot be aborted. It cannot be sabotaged. It cannot be delayed. I have my hand on it, and I am bringing it forth in power. So prepare, not with panic but with joy. What's rising is not just for you. It's for generations. It's for territory. It's for impact far beyond your imagination. All of it began when you said yes, when no one knew but I heard. I am not calling for convenience, I am calling for complete yielding. I cannot work through a vessel that withholds compartments of control, that maintains selective trust, or that bargains obedience based on preferred outcomes. The weight of what I am releasing demands that nothing in you remains reserved or restricted. You've come far, yes, but partial surrender will never carry the fullness of the mantle I've placed upon your life. I see the areas you've given me willingly, and I honor those sacrifices. But now I place my hand on what you've protected, the places where fear still speaks louder than faith, the corners of your soul you only open halfway, the dreams you keep grasping just in case I take too long to fulfill mine. This is where I ask you to lay it all down. Not out of punishment, out of invitation. Because full surrender isn't loss, it's access. When you place everything before me, you're not giving up control. You're stepping into alignment. You're releasing yourself from pressure you were never designed to carry. I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for permission. And I cannot finish what you keep pulling back from my hands. I need the broken expectations, the delayed timelines, the pain you've tried to package and tuck away. I need the pride masked as independence, the walls you've built to keep yourself safe, and the narratives you've constructed around disappointment. Surrender means handing me not only your hopes, but also your wounds, letting me touch what you've only tried to numb. You've learned how to survive with fragments, but I'm calling you into fullness. And fullness requires emptying. I'm not asking for an offering, I'm asking for everything. The subtle ways you still try to predict what I'll do next, the internal calculations you make before following my prompting, the backup plans you create just in case my path takes too long. Lay them down. I am not slow. I am strategic. And what I am building in you cannot coexist with compromise. I won't force my way past your hesitation. I will wait. But I will not wait silently. I will speak, and speak again, until you feel the weight of this moment. Because I'm not preparing you for a slight shift. I'm positioning you for a total realignment. You were not born to live halfway lit, partially burning, occasionally faithful. You were created to blaze with my presence, to move in unwavering trust, to walk where others fear to go because they haven't let go of what you're now being asked to release. And I'm not just talking about sin. I'm talking about distractions that feel holy. I'm talking about attachments that feel safe. I'm talking about loyalties that pull you away from the altar. I'm talking about habits that numb you instead of heal you. I'm talking about the subtle resistance in your spirit that masks itself as wisdom, but is really rooted in self-preservation. Full surrender is the soil of miracles. It is where power flows freely, where heaven invades naturally, where divine authority multiplies without human striving. But you have to stop flinching when I place my hand on something tender. You have to stop negotiating with delay. You have to stop holding on to what you once needed for survival but now hinders your assignment. This isn't about legalism. It's about freedom. You've asked me for more. You've asked me to move. You've asked me to speak. And I'm answering with this invitation. All of it begins with everything. Nothing hidden. Nothing withheld. Nothing managed in secret. If you give me what you fear to let go of, I will give you what no man can take away. I will breathe on your sacrifice. I will multiply what you laid down, and I will raise you up, not in pride, but in purpose. But I cannot release the next until you release the last. So here I stand, not demanding, but waiting for your all, right now. This hasn't been random hardship. What you've endured wasn't chaos without cause. Every heated moment, every pressure that pushed against you, every resistance you couldn't explain, it was all part of a holy preparation that I orchestrated with care. You may have assumed you were simply surviving attack, but what was truly happening was consecration. I have not been distant during this intensity. I've been standing in the flames with you, regulating the temperature so that nothing essential to your calling would be lost. Only the excess burned away. I allowed the intensity not to break you, but to purify what I intend to build through you. There are levels of authority you cannot access without enduring this type of fire. And though it scorched familiar comfort and revealed inner fractures, it also exposed gold within you that you didn't know was buried under old layers. You've been asking me to increase your capacity, and this is how I've done it. Not through ease, but through endurance. Not by handing you more, but by removing what blocked the flow of what I've already given. The friction you've been feeling wasn't punishment. It was friction against what no longer fits. I am enlarging your frame from the inside out, and yes, it has stretched you, but that stretch is necessary because of what's about to arrive. I am entrusting you with responsibility that requires purity, clarity, and stability, and that's what the fire was forming in you all along. You were never going to be ordinary. The pressure came because of the weight of your purpose, not the size of your failure. And while others around you were seemingly untouched, I chose to walk you through a path of deeper refinement because your impact will reach further than theirs. I am setting you apart. And separation never feels gentle. It cuts, it exposes, it removes. But the fire never comes without reason. I allow it so that when you emerge, there is no confusion about who shaped you. No confusion about what sustains you. No confusion about what you're carrying. Because the moment is drawing near when I will position you to release what I have cultivated inside you. You thought you were merely enduring, but I was calibrating you for acceleration. There will be no delay when I send you. There will be no room for hesitation when the mantle descends. You will be called upon without warning, and when that call comes, I need you steady. The trial was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to stabilize you for sudden release. The doors I'm opening required individuals who have been tested, not just talented. This is why I did not remove the discomfort immediately. This is why your cries were met with my still presence instead of instant change. I was not ignoring you. I was anchoring you. I was forging in you a spirit that cannot be swayed by emotion or defeated by resistance. I was sharpening your discernment. I was strengthening your resolve. I was chiseling your character. And now, the time is coming quickly when you will see why this path had to be so specific, why you couldn't avoid the weight, why your prayers for escape were met with whispers of endurance instead. It is because I knew what was coming. I saw the battlefield ahead, the territory I designed for you to claim, the lives I would entrust to your obedience. I could not let you walk into that unprepared. So yes, the fire was necessary. But the fire was never the destination, it was the preparation. And now that the refining is reaching completion, I am positioning you in the open. Not for attention, for assignment. Not to be admired, to be trusted. And you will know it was me, because when the doors open, they will not be shallow opportunities. They will be sacred appointments born from your perseverance in the heat. The fire did not take you out. It set you apart. And what's coming will make every flame make sense. There is a pressure that comes not from failure, but from proximity. And that is the tension surrounding you now. Hell is not fighting you because you are weak. It's reacting violently because you're nearing the fulfillment of something I spoke long ago. You've crossed into territory that threatens the plans of darkness. You've stepped over a threshold, even without realizing it, and your presence there is disrupting the atmosphere of strongholds that have stood unchallenged for years. The warfare has intensified not because you've done something wrong, but because you're getting dangerously close to breakthrough that will change more than just your life. It will break patterns in others, shake systems, and restore what was stolen from generations before you. That's why the conflict has become louder. That's why you've been under attack in areas that once felt stable. The resistance isn't random. It's calculated. The enemy saw movement in the spirit and panicked. He recognized your alignment before you did. He caught wind of what I was about to release through your obedience, and so he unleashed disruption to shake your confidence. But I tell you now, do not be moved by the pressure. Recognize it for what it is, a confirmation that you've touched something holy, that your posture is provoking spiritual reaction, that your steps are not just symbolic, they are strategic. If your obedience didn't matter, the warfare wouldn't be this fierce. If your prayers weren't shifting the environment, the enemy wouldn't be trying so hard to distract you. He is not attacking the version of you that doubts. He's attacking the one I'm calling forth. The one who has been rising, quietly and fiercely, in the secret place. The one who has grown into a warrior while others only saw a survivor. You are not who you were when this journey began. The trials refined your sight. The pruning matured your discernment. And now, the resistance is trying to disorient you in the final stretch. But hear me clearly. The noise is not a sign to retreat. It is proof that the opposition is out of actions. When the kingdom of darkness senses it is losing ground, it increases the volume, not its power. There's no new weapon being formed, just louder threats trying to shake you into paralysis. But you're not going backward. Not now. Not after what you've endured. Not after the nights you remained steadfast when everything in you screamed to quit. You've come too far to surrender to lies. You've been anointed to finish what I started. And I will not allow the resistance to remove you from position. I've stationed angels around you. I've placed my word in your mouth. I've armed you with authority that doesn't shrink under pressure. It sharpens. So press forward. Don't flinch. Let the noise rage, and do not give it your agreement. Because in this hour, your agreement is everything. What you come into alignment with will either fuel the fire of fear or release the power of faith. Choose faith. Speak life. Declare what I have said, not what you feel. The manifestation of my word is not dependent on smooth paths. It often arrives in the midst of storms and pierces through adversity. It lands right where resistance tried to plant doubt. And what I've declared over you is not returning void. The fulfillment is not theoretical. It is tangible, and it is close. So close that the environment around you is already adjusting. So close that circumstances are bending to accommodate what's arriving. So close that I'm asking you not to blink, not to waver, not to question what you've been prepared for. You didn't come this far to crumble. You came this far to cross over. And the final stretch, though loud, is brief. Hold fast. Stand firm. Lift your eyes. The very thing I promised is approaching at full speed, and nothing can stop what I've already set in motion. Because this stage demands something most never learn to trust: vision without evidence. The terrain you're walking now doesn't reflect what I've promised yet, but that doesn't mean I've changed direction. This is where I test whether your faith is tethered to outcomes or rooted in my voice. I never ask you to calculate based on what's visible. I ask you to believe what I've spoken. And this, right here, is the tension that separates the called from the chosen, the ability to move forward without confirmation, to obey without applause, to keep building while everyone else walks away. You don't need signs when you have my word. You don't need comfort when you're carrying conviction. But many reach this place and slow down because the landscape looks barren. They question the journey simply because fruit hasn't appeared yet. But I've never judged progress by surface growth. I judge it by depth, by resilience, by alignment. And I see yours. You've been measuring yourself by timelines that were never mine. You've been wondering why momentum feels inconsistent. But what you perceive as stagnation is often the sacred space where transformation roots itself beneath the surface. I'm doing something internal that no chart can capture, something eternal that no calendar can dictate. This portion of your walk is not about speed. It's about surrender. It's about learning how to move with me when the path is unmarked, to follow the rhythm of my spirit when nothing around you gives explanation. And this kind of movement requires boldness that doesn't lean on evidence. It comes from intimacy, from knowing me so deeply that even in the dark, you recognize my breath. You've been asking for signs. I've been offering instruction. You've been waiting for proof. I've been giving direction. And now I'm asking, will you keep stepping forward even when nothing looks like the promise yet? Will you keep trusting me when progress cannot be tracked by human measurement? Because this moment is sacred. Most turn back here. They settle for what's manageable. They reduce their calling to what feels possible. They choose familiarity over obedience. But not you. I've brought you too far to lose you to discouragement. I've invested too much into your foundation to let it be abandoned now. What you're carrying is rare, and the path required to release it won't resemble anyone else's. So stop comparing your season to theirs. Stop trying to validate your obedience by visible reward. I don't reward based on performance. I release based on readiness. And while others may appear ahead, what I'm doing in you will last. What I'm building through you will not collapse under pressure. What's coming will require the very endurance that's being tested now. So don't curse this stretch of the journey. Don't label it as delay when it's actually the ground where resilience is born. Don't confuse silence for absence or slowness for neglect. I am here. I am watching. I am moving, even if it's not where your eyes can see. And soon, everything that felt like emptiness will be filled with clarity. Everything that seemed pointless will be redeemed with precision. You will look back and realize this was the stretch where everything shifted, not around you, but within you. And what changed within you is what made you strong enough to carry what's coming next. So take heart. Don't retreat. Keep your face set like flint. The wind may not yet be visible, but it's shifting. The soil may not show bloom, but it's swelling beneath. The horizon may still look distant, but it's being pulled toward you with divine momentum. You're further than you think. You're stronger than you realize. And I'm closer than you've ever known. Keep walking. Don't look down. This is the exact place I've called you to walk through, not around. I'm leading you, step by step, through what looks uncertain but ends in glory. Trust me. You're almost there. What tried to crush you was never meant to end you. It was meant to forge you. I allowed you to face battles that others couldn't see, not to punish you, but to unlock something no comfort could ever produce. Inside the very moments that drained your energy and left you gasping for hope, I planted power, not visible to the surface eye, but embedded deep within your spirit like treasure waiting to be discovered. That pain was not wasted. The heartbreak didn't go unnoticed. Every ache, every unanswered cry, every moment when your hands shook from holding on, those were not just experiences, they were encounters. In them, I was pressing oil out of what felt dry, drawing substance from places that once felt hollow. And now, that hidden substance is rising to the surface. What once made you feel weak will now become the very place you pour from. Others will come to you, not because you promoted yourself, but because your wounds carry healing. I've turned what you thought was disqualification into spiritual authority. I've shaped your story not into something to hide, but something to release, because your scars are not symbols of failure. They are signatures of survival. You didn't break. You bent and returned stronger. And now, that strength is being activated. You won't need to rehearse your testimony. It will flow naturally, because it lives in every part of you. You've become a living letter of my faithfulness, written not with ink, but with perseverance. The enemy underestimated what would happen when you refused to quit. He thought your breaking point would become your burial site, but instead it became the birthplace of something holy. That season tried to silence your voice, but instead it deepened your tone. that made your words carry gravity. And when you speak now, shackles will start loosening, not because of volume, but because of truth refined in fire. You see, I've allowed you to understand bondage first, and so that when I send you to those imprisoned, you won't offer surface solutions. You'll know how to reach into the depth of pain with gentleness and precision. You won't preach from theory, you'll minister from experience. And that's why I chose you. Not because you had the loudest worship or the most impressive resume, but because you carried your cross through nights of silence and valleys of anguish, and still you whispered, "I trust you." That trust became a weapon. That weapon became your witness. And now your witness is becoming someone else's rescue. I am sending you not to entertain, but to dismantle lies. Not to perform, but to free. What you gained in the cave of suffering will become a light in the hallways of deliverance. The same hands that once trembled in weakness will now lift others up with confidence. The same mouth that once stammered in fear will now speak with piercing discernment. I have entrusted you with the authority of the broken, the ones who didn't just survive, but transformed. And now your life will reflect this truth, redemption always as a ripple. What you carry will not remain contained. It will stretch into the lives of those around you, not with force but with presence. You'll notice atmospheres change when you walk in, because pain recognizes pain, but healed pain carries a fragrance of hope. And you wear that fragrance now. It lingers even when you say nothing. It draws the weary. It comforts the shattered. And it commands darkness to leave. So don't minimize what you've endured. Don't downplay the places where you've bled. I see them all, and I've marked them not as defeats but as doors. Walk through those doors. I will meet you there. And through them, I will draw many into the same freedom I gave you when no one else could see what was happening inside. What nearly ended you is now about to launch you into purpose, into healing, into divine impact that cannot be measured. This is the reason it was so hard. This is the reason it lasted so long. I was making sure nothing in you would be wasted. And now, I'm releasing you. Not empty, but overflowing. While you were wondering why everything external seemed still, I was reaching into the hidden structure of your soul, restoring the parts no one else could see. I wasn't concerned about outward momentum, I was focused on your inner stability. I know how easily success can shatter a person whose core remains fractured, so I slowed the surface while I repaired the unseen. I touched the places where you learned to hide pain behind productivity. I exposed roots that were planted in fear so I could replace them with strength anchored in truth. You didn't always feel my hand, but it was there, gently pulling out what no longer served your calling. I peeled away the layers of self-reliance and replaced them with unwavering trust. I stripped off false identities you picked up in seasons of disappointment, so when I build through you, it will rise from a place of authenticity, not performance. You have asked me for elevation, but I care more about endurance. And endurance cannot be faked. It is forged. So I've been crafting depth while you prayed for display. I've been molding the integrity of your character while you waited for promotion. What I'm building in you requires a foundation that won't move when the winds come, because the winds will come. There will be pressure. There will be demand. There will be exposure. But if I build it, it will not fall. If I establish it, it will withstand every shaking. This is why I've insisted on going slow. You wanted to rush into visibility, but I needed to anchor you in identity. You were ready to be seen, but I needed to ensure that you would not lose me once you stepped into the spotlight. I'm not preparing you for applause, I'm preparing you for impact. That kind of impact begins deep, beneath the applause, beneath the results, beneath the outcomes. It begins with surrender when no one's watching. It begins with character in solitude. It begins with choosing humility when pride seems justifiable. And that is the foundation I've been fortifying. Even the cracks you thought disqualified you, I filled them with grace. Even the weaknesses you tried to hide, I've sealed them with mercy. Your foundation now holds substance, not just structure. And because of that, I can build something through you that lasts. Others have rushed ahead, built fast, climbed high. But their structures have no root. One storm and it all falls. But you've endured. You submitted. You've allowed me to dig deep. You've allowed me to take my time. That time is not wasted. That hidden work is your strength now. The foundation I've laid will not shake, no matter what surrounds you. And what I build on it will not be temporary. This is legacy. This is generational. What I'm setting in motion through your life is not just for this moment. It's for the ones coming after you. And they will walk on what you let me form now. They will stand steady because you let me dig deep. So when the doors begin to open, and they will, don't be surprised if I move quickly. The slowness was never about delay. It was about preparing the unseen. Now that the foundation is complete, the construction can begin at divine speed. But even as the building rises, stay close to me. Never neglect the foundation for the facade. Never trade intimacy for image. Keep returning to the place where we met in the quiet. Let our secret place remain the blueprint for every visible thing. Because the higher I take you, the deeper I'll still call you. And if you let me keep building, I will make of your life a structure that shelters many, a refuge for the hurting, a testimony of what I can do when someone allows me full access beneath the surface. What you thought had been permanently taken from you was never beyond my reach. Every portion of peace, opportunity, trust, and time that seemed stolen has not vanished. It has been secured, preserved, and held in reserve until this very hour. You believed loss was the end of the story, but I'm showing you now that my nature is not simply to return what was broken, but to expand it into something greater than before. I have never been interested in partial redemption. I'm not handing back the same version of what you cried over. I'm unfolding a multiplied outcome that carries the weight of divine intention. The enemy's efforts to silence you, to bury your voice under layers of disappointment, to crush your hope beneath waves of delay, all of it has failed. What he meant to erase has only provoked a deeper activation in you. And now I'm taking what he tried to kill and causing it to rise with glory that cannot be imitated. This is resurrection, but not as you expected. It's not just about recovering ground. It's about enlarging the territory you thought you forfeited. You assumed that when it was gone, the story was over. But I used the stillness to expand the inheritance. I used the seeming setback to prepare a greater unfolding. What felt like a burial was actually a planting. And what I plant always returns in abundance. You didn't see me working during those empty seasons, but I was restoring your core so when the return comes, you won't collapse under the weight of the blessing. Yes, I'm calling it a blessing, not just because it looks good, but because it carries my breath. What's returning will not resemble what left. It will be bigger, deeper, purer, and unmistakably divine. The enemy hoped to make you bitter through the loss. He hoped you'd curse me for allowing it. But instead, you held on, even with trembling hands, even when faith flickered like a small flame in the wind. You didn't walk away. And I never forgot that. That silent endurance, that quiet loyalty, it is being answered now. I've seen the places where you mourned in silence. I've counted the spaces where you poured your heart out with no one there to affirm it. And now I'm responding, not with mere restoration, but with overflow. You'll look back and realize that nothing was truly taken from you. It was set aside until you were ready to carry it differently. Some doors had to close so new structures could be built. Some relationships had to be severed so legacy could be protected. Some positions had to be removed so purpose could emerge with clarity. The subtraction was not the end. It was the prelude. And now multiplication is coming in forms you never anticipated. Not only will I restore what seemed lost, I will do it in front of the same forces that tried to convince you it was over. I will prepare tables, open gates, and cause even your enemies to acknowledge that I was with you the entire time. The waiting wasn't wasted. The tears weren't ignored. Every ache in your heart was recorded. Every moment of obedience has been credited. and the fullness of that return begins now. So I need you to prepare, not just emotionally, but structurally. Like room for more than what you expected. Adjust your perspective to accommodate growth beyond logic. This is not a recycled version of yesterday. This is a release that comes with acceleration. I will do in moments what would have taken years by your own effort. And when it comes, don't shrink. Don't apologize. Don't second-guess whether you're worthy. I've already decided that. And what I've called clean, no one can label as disqualified. This is your season of divine multiplication, not by striving but by promise. Watch what I do with what the enemy buried. You've been carrying wounds that words couldn't explain, not because you were weak, but because I was allowing you to feel the weight of separation required for elevation. Betrayal doesn't just remove people, it reveals truth. It unmasks what was pretending. It shakes foundations built on familiarity and exposes what cannot go with you into your next assignment. You didn't lose loyalty. I removed what was never rooted in real covenant. I allowed hearts to turn, not because I wanted you abandoned, but because I needed you available. You couldn't hear me clearly while surrounded by voices that didn't carry my spirit. I wasn't trying to isolate you to punish you. I was preparing to entrust you with something that required purity around you. And purity always requires pruning. You were asking me for discernment, so I answered with exposure. You asked for deeper insight, and I allowed situations to unfold that revealed more than words ever could. What looked like rejection was protection. What felt like disconnection was divine redirection. And while you were grieving the absence, I was making space for presence, not just mine, but the right people, with the right spirit, sent in the right timing. But even more than that, I was using every wound to shape something weightier within you. Pain has been your teacher, and the betrayal you endured has birthed authority that textbooks can't provide. You now understand how to recognize hidden motives. You learn to discern between charisma and character. You've developed eyes that see beyond surface because betrayal sharpened your vision. And that sharpness is not bitterness, it's clarity. That clarity is not suspicion, it's wisdom. And I am now placing you in rooms that require this level of insight. You're being invited into environments where people smile with their mouths but scheme with their hearts, and because of what you survived, you will not be deceived. You will walk with confidence, not cynicism. Because I've healed your heart while increasing your vision. And I am giving you language for what you once endured in silence. I'm releasing understanding that turns former pain into present purpose. You'll begin to speak from a place of deliverance, not just for your own healing, but as a key for others who haven't yet found their way out. You'll sense the same spirit that once tormented you now trembling when you open your mouth. You'll carry a breaker anointing, not because you studied it, but because you live it. That is why the betrayal was so deep, because the authority would be even deeper. And now I'm using the very moments meant to silence you to amplify your voice. Those who doubted you will see you rise with a strength they can't explain. Those who walked away will witness what I build without them. Not out of vengeance, but out of vindication. Not because I want to shame them, but because I want to show that what I begin, no man can halt. Your table is being set, and it is not for revenge. It is for purpose. Because I always use what the enemy meant for harm to deliver breakthrough beyond imagination. So don't despise the way the story unfolded. Don't wish away the pain that prepared you. Don't curse the betrayal. It became the doorway into destiny. If they hadn't left, you wouldn't have looked up. If they hadn't turned, you wouldn't have turned deeper into me. Your absence became the space where my presence moved freely. Their silence became the backdrop for my voice to become unmistakable. Their departure made room for divine arrival. So lift your head, not in arrogance but in assurance. You're no longer bleeding from betrayal. You're burning with a new fire. That fire will lead others out of deception. That fire will break cycles in bloodlines. That fire is not just restoration, it is commissioning. And what you're stepping into now carries authority that can only come through fire-tested faith. This is why it happened, And this is why you survived. I heard every question you whispered through clenched teeth. I saw the way you tried to stay strong while wondering why the breaking seemed so personal, why the pressure didn't ease when you cried out, and why the pain seemed to settle in the places that once felt strongest. But I tell you now, it wasn't cruelty. It was surgery. I wasn't trying to harm you. I was removing attachments, expectations, beliefs, and patterns that would have sabotaged what I'm about to release through you. You see, where I'm leading you doesn't require more, it requires less. Less of what drains you, less of what distracts you, less of what disguises itself as necessary but weighs you down. There are mindsets you didn't know you were carrying, habits you thought were harmless, relationships you assumed were permanent, and identities you built out of survival. All of them were functioning as extra weight, and extra weight will cause collapse under elevation. So I began to cut. And the cutting felt brutal because it touched familiar places. It exposed hidden bruises you had covered with strength. It revealed where your trust was partial. It brought your attention to what you would have ignored had I not applied pressure. But I don't perform shallow healing. I go to the root. I dig until what was buried can no longer hide. I search the secret chambers of your heart, not to shame you but to free you. I never meant for you to walk into your calling with infection still inside. And pain, though uncomfortable, is often the tool that reveals what disease has been tolerated too long. You were ready to step forward, but I couldn't let you carry dysfunction into destiny. I needed to ensure that when you arrived at the door, you wouldn't bring sabotage with you disguised as confidence. And so, I allowed the discomfort. I permitted the ache. Because what I was cutting away with poisoning the promise. You wanted increase. I required cleansing. You asked for open doors. I insisted on inner order. You prayed for promotion. I responded with pruning. And now, on the other side of that process, you're beginning to sense what I was truly doing all along. The sting was evidence that I still had my hand on you. I never left you to process the pain alone. I walked with you through every tear, every disappointment, every shattering moment of realization. I was never far. I was close, bending low, whispering truth as the false supports were stripped away. And now, what's left is not weakness, it's readiness. You are lighter. You are clear. You are no longer dragging things I never asked you to carry. That's why your spirit feels tender. It's been reawakened. That's why your sensitivity has increased. Your distractions have been removed. That's why you're hearing me more distinctly. Your heart has been cleared of static. And now I can trust you with weightier assignments. Now I can release deeper instructions. Because what I was doing and you had to be done before what I'm doing through you could begin. And though it hurt, in work, the shaking was necessary. The tears were not wasted. The discomfort wasn't palliament, it was preparation. And I don't just prepare for events, I prepare for purpose. The places you're about to enter will demand clarity of soul and strength of conviction. There will be moments where others bend under pressure, but you will not. Because you've already been pressed. You've already endured the internal refining. You've already stood when there was no audience applauding. You've already obeyed when comfort was no longer an option. That kind of trust makes you dangerous to darkness. That kind of surrender makes you ready for legacy. So don't regret the pain. Don't resent the process. What was removed had to go. And what remains now is fully mine. Watch what I do with what I've refined. You thought expansion would come by addition, but increase in my kingdom begins with subtraction, not to deprive you, but to clear the way. There were things entangled in your daily rhythms that quietly drained your capacity. Patterns that felt harmless but slowly dulled your awareness. Attachments that looked beneficial yet distorted your discernment. And because I heard your cry for more influence, more impact, more of me, I had to respond by showing you what no longer had space in your next chapter. The increase you longed for required space to land. But I couldn't pour fresh oil into vessels already overflowing with clutter. I couldn't deposit vision into a mind still occupied by old strategies. You asked me to expand your territory, but first I had to uproot the borders you built out of fear, self-preservation, and past disappointment. What you called comfort was actually constriction. What you labeled familiar had become a fence around your calling. So I began removing, gently but firmly. I led you through seasons of release, not because you were losing, but because I was inviting you into alignment. And alignment always begins with letting go. The more you tried to hold on to the outdated, the heavier your spirit became. So I waited for your permission. Not because I needed it to move, but because true increase can only enter the heart that's yielded. When you finally said yes, not the kind of yes that comes from desperation, but the one that comes from surrender, the shift began. Doors began to shut. Relationships began to drift. Opportunities began to dry up, not randomly, but sovereignly. I was answering your prayer, even while your emotions were trying to interpret it as loss. You didn't see it at first, but I was untying the knots. I was loosening the grip of habits that stole your focus. I was breaking dependencies that distracted from intimacy. I was removing structures that propped up your confidence, but lacked spiritual foundation. And now, the room is opening. And now, the capacity is growing. What once overwhelmed you no longer feels impossible, because I've given you margin. I've created space for the supernatural to move freely. You no longer carry weight that was never yours. You're no longer fighting battles that aren't assigned to your name. And because you've allowed the removal, now you're prepared for the release. I don't bless what competes with me. And now that the noise has quieted, now that the unnecessary has been laid down, I can release clarity that was waiting all along. I've already begun to deposit ideas, instructions, and blueprints, not for survival, but for expansion. I'm revealing connections that don't drain, but multiply. I'm sending people who don't require explanation, but carry shared language, those who won't misunderstand your burden, but will help you carry it. And I will continue to remove anything that tries to sneak back into the space I've cleared. Because this new territory must remain holy. It must remain focused. I did not create room for chaos to re-enter. I created it so my spirit could dwell without obstruction. This is the season where the seeds you've carried in the dark will begin to stretch. Not all at once, but undeniably. The roots have been going deep, and now the shoots will break through. The fruit will come not because you've hustled, but because you've yielded. And the fruit will be lasting, because the soil has been prepared. So don't be surprised when you begin to see multiplication in places that once felt barren. Don't question it. Don't wonder if you're imagining it. You're not. This is the evidence of what I've been preparing. You didn't just survive the stripping. You stewarded it well. You didn't just endure the quiet. You embraced the invitation. And now, increase is no longer a concept. It's becoming your reality. And what I add, no man can remove. You've misread the intensity surrounding you. The pressure, the inner conflict, the spiritual fatigue. It's not because you've missed something, but because you're right on time. You're not being punished. You're being placed. And placement rarely feels peaceful at first, because I'm putting you in a position of influence that demands spiritual alertness. The conflict that has risen around you is not random. It's in direct response to the shift I've initiated. You've walked into enemy territory, not by accident, but by assignment. And now the enemy is agitated, not because you're weak, but because you've become dangerous. The resistance has increased because your awareness has sharpened. You're not who you used to be. You're discerning what's behind the scenes now. You're identifying the subtle schemes that once disguised themselves as ordinary distraction. You're sensing what others ignore. That discernment is evidence of promotion, not disqualification. And this battlefield is not your defeat. It's your proving ground. I'm using this moment to solidify the authority I've been cultivating within you. You're not losing. You're stepping into a confrontation that confirms what I've entrusted you with. I didn't leave you unprepared. You've been equipped in the silence, trained through seasons where no one applauded, readied in hidden places. And now, the very skills that seemed unnecessary before are becoming your greatest weapons. The spiritual insight you've gained is not just for self-protection, it's for territory taking. You're not standing still, you're moving into land I've assigned to you. But every inheritance is contested. Every breakthrough invites opposition. You're feeling it now because you step out of safety and into significance. The enemy would rather have you discouraged than dangerous. He'd rather see you questioning your progress than recognizing your dominion. But I'm speaking this clearly. You have not failed. You have not lost momentum. You have not fallen behind. What you're walking through is sharpening you for something weightier. I'm removing all hesitation from your heart. I'm stirring boldness that won't be silenced by accusation. You will not retreat from this battle. You will rise through it. This is not a setback. It is your strengthening. And though you may feel pressure, you're not breaking, you're being expanded. The stretch you feel is capacity increasing. The tension you feel is alignment happening. And the warfare you face is an indicator of the gates you're about to walk through. Don't underestimate how close you are. Don't measure your progress by the absence of conflict. Measure it by the depth of endurance you're developing. You've been gaining territory even while under fire. I've been surrounding you with protection that goes unseen. You've walked through danger unaware, covered by angels dispatched at my command. And even now, you're being upheld by intercession, not just yours but mine. I have prayed for you. I have stood before the Father on your behalf. I have declared that your faith will not fail, and it will not. Even if your strength feels depleted, your spirit is held by my word. You will not fold. You will not be overtaken. I am the one who fights with you, in you, through you. This is not your burden to carry alone. I have already secured the outcome. I just need you to stand. Stand when it's confusing. Stand when it's quiet. Stand when everything in you wants to run. Because your standing is not passive, it's powerful. It sends a signal to heaven that you still trust me, and it announces to darkness that you will not surrender your ground. Victory is not a feeling, it's a position. And you are standing in it right now. You will look back on this moment and realize it was not your undoing, it was your unlocking. This battle will not define your weakness. It will reveal your authority. So remain. Resist. Advance. You're not fighting alone. I am with you, and I never lose. You've asked me for clarity, and I'm answering, but not always in the way you expected. I'm not giving explanations that appeal to logic. I'm giving directives that call for obedience. I don't need you to fully understand. I need you to trust what I'm whispering even when it contradicts everything familiar. The instructions I'm placing in your spirit are time-sensitive. They are designed to unlock movements that depend on your response, not your reasoning. Delayed obedience in this moment will cost alignment. I'm not speaking to impress you with insight. I'm guiding you into supernatural precision. The steps I'm giving you aren't optional. They are sacred keys, and each one is unlocking something far greater than you can see now. It's not just about your comfort or convenience. I'm moving pieces that will affect people you haven't met, doors you haven't reached, and assignments you haven't even imagined. So when I speak now, when I nudge your spirit, stir your atmosphere, and place something heavy on your heart, don't second-guess it. Don't pull for approval. Don't delay by asking for signs I've already confirmed through peace. The urgency you feel is not anxiety. It's the weight of my divine appointment pressing through. I'm giving blueprints that don't come through research, they come through revelation. I'm depositing ideas that weren't in your mind a moment ago, but carry eternal purpose. Some of them will stretch you. Some will require quick action. Some will challenge how you've always done things. That's because what I'm doing in you now has no reference point in your past. I'm not recycling an old season. I'm initiating something unprecedented. and you cannot afford to bring hesitation into what requires decisive surrender. The next few moments of your obedience will become the ground that generations walk on. What you do with my voice in this hour will echo long after you move on. So I'm asking you to listen deeper. Not just with your ears, but with your spirit. I'm fine-tuning your inner compass, not so you can be perfect, but so you can be accurate. There's a difference. Accuracy is born from intimacy, not performance. I'm not interested in outward perfection. I'm interested in inward sensitivity. If I say go, move. If I say wait, don't force your way forward. If I tell you to speak, don't silence yourself out of insecurity. If I ask you to let go, don't negotiate with what you've already outgrown. I'm bringing clarity, not so you can control outcomes, but so you can cooperate with heaven's timeline. This is about momentum, and momentum requires movement. If you stall where I told you to shift, you'll miss encounters I've already positioned along your path. The reason you've been feeling pressure in your routines, restlessness in your daily rhythm, is because I'm trying to break the ceiling that familiarity has placed over your growth. I'm doing a new thing, and newness cannot live in places ruled by comfort. My instructions will often disrupt your routine, not because I want chaos, but because I want clarity. You've been praying for me to take you deeper, but deeper requires different, and different requires immediate response when I speak. You don't need to see the full picture, just take the first step. What's on the other side of that step isn't small. It's sacred. That phone call I prompt you to make, that boundary I ask you to set, that move I place on your heart, they are all part of the pattern I'm weaving through your life. Trust the thread I'm placing in your hands. It may feel insignificant, but it's connected to something massive. And if you obey quickly, you'll see what I meant when I said urgent. You're not behind. You're not disqualified. You're not uncertain. You're simply being positioned for a moment that demands courage before clarity. And I'm with you as you walk it out. Just respond. That's all I need. The rest is already written. There's a path unfolding beneath your feet that I laid long before you asked me for direction. Every twist, every unfamiliar turn, every narrow passage that doesn't seem to make sense, I shaped it with my own hand. You didn't stumble into this moment by chance. You were drawn here, compelled by longing, driven by questions, and carried through seasons you couldn't explain. But even when you didn't know where you were going, I was already positioning the trail ahead of you, placing markers invisible to the natural eye but undeniable to the sensitive heart. The prayers you whispered through clenched teeth, the longings you carried in silence, the ache that never found words, all of it has guided you here. And now, I'm telling you this. The very answer you thought was distant is already approaching your path. You don't need to search endlessly or try to piece together signs like a puzzle. What you need is to follow. Because when you walk with me, not ahead of me, not behind me, but with me, you enter places of supernatural precision. Every step you take in obedience releases something in the unseen. You may not feel it right away, but chains are breaking. Locks are clicking open. Seeds are being watered. The alignment I'm creating cannot be disrupted by human error, as long as your steps remain yielded. You've tried striving. You've tried orchestrating your own solution. But those methods only led to exhaustion. What I'm inviting you into now is flow. Not passivity, flow. Walking with me is not standing still. It's responding to every nudge, every whisper, every pause, every prompting. It's not about speed, it's about synchronization. And when your motion matches my rhythm, everything that once felt hard begins to shift. Doors that refuse to budge swing open without force. Conversations you couldn't initiate begin to happen without prompting. The connections you've longed for start arriving, not because you demanded them, but because I scheduled them. You were never meant to carry the weight of making everything happen. That's my job. Yours is to follow the path I've set and trust that my presence goes before you, not just beside you. And yes, I'm going to lead you in ways that will stretch your comfort, There will be moments you question whether you're truly hearing me. But I've already confirmed it. That uneasiness isn't confusion. It's me breaking your dependence on familiar patterns. You won't always have a detailed map, but you will have my voice. And that voice will guide you to places you didn't even know were part of your promise. I'm not leading you in circles. I'm leading you through layers. You're not going backward. You're going deeper. What I'm revealing now isn't new. It's just been buried under years of noise. That's why this path requires silence at times, so you can recognize what you've already heard, but forgotten. You've been crying out for breakthrough, for answers, for clarity, and I'd heard it all. But what you don't realize is that the answers aren't at the end of the journey. They're scattered along the path. Each step you take will uncover what you need for the next. I don't reveal everything at once because I don't want you walking by sight. I'm developing trust, not formulas. Dependence, not routines. You may feel like you're walking blindfolded, but you're actually walking protected, shielded from distractions that would have pulled you off course had you seen too much too soon. So keep going. Keep saying yes, even when the terrain changes. Even when others stop walking beside you. Even when the sky grows quiet and the scenery feels the same. Because just around the next curve is the manifestation you've been waiting for. And when it appears, it will feel like a surprise. It'll feel like home. You'll realize I didn't just answer your prayer. I exceeded it. I led you not only to what you asked for, but into what I always knew you needed. And all of it started when you said, "Yes, I'll follow." I know how weary you feel right now. I see how the pressure has intensified just when you expected breakthrough. You've wondered why, after all your obedience, you're still standing in unfamiliar terrain. But hear me, this is not a detour. This is the threshold. You're standing closer to fulfillment than you've ever been, and this testing is not to diminish you, but to confirm what's been cultivated in you when no one else was watching. Testing does not mean I've withdrawn. It means I've entrusted. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. And this specific moment has been handpicked by heaven to refine the last remaining places that need full agreement with my plan. You've prayed to be used, to carry more, to walk in the fullness of what I've designed for you. And now, I'm showing you what that truly requires. The test isn't for me to learn about you. I already know who you are. The test is for you to realize who you've become. It's to show you how much deeper your roots have gone. How much stronger your faith is now than when you started. How much more resilient your spirit has become in the silence, in the crushing, in the process. And now, at this final gate, everything is being revealed, not to expose weakness, but to release authority. Because what's coming next must be entrusted to those who won't be moved by storms or seduced by shortcuts. The gate you're standing in front of doesn't open with talent or charisma. It opens with obedience forged in fire. I allowed this fire not to burn you out, but to burn away what could not remain. The entitlement, the need for constant affirmation, the desire to be seen before you were ready to be sent. All of it has been addressed in this testing. And now, what's left in you is real, unshakable, pure. You've been refined not only for blessing but for burden. Because what I place on your life will bless many, but it will also carry weight. And that's why I waited until now. That's why the breakthrough didn't arrive when you asked. I wasn't withholding it to tease you. I was waiting until you could handle what comes with it. You don't just receive favor, you must carry it, steward it, protect it from distortion. And that kind of stewardship is only formed in moments like this. When you keep walking even when you don't understand. When you stay faithful with nothing to show. When you lift your hands while your heart aches. These are the things that move heaven. These are the things that separate the temporary from the eternal. So no, this is not punishment. It's the proving ground for something far greater than you expected. The stretching, the silence, the slow progression. It has all been building something sacred beneath the surface. And the longer, the preparation, the more significant the release. You're not waiting because you're forgotten. You're waiting because I'm getting everything in perfect alignment. Arts, people, resources, timing. The doors I'm about to open require all of it to be ready, not just some. And now, I'm bringing the final pieces into place. Don't grow impatient now. Don't lose heart at the final gate. You're inches away from manifestation. Don't turn back because the pressure increased. That pressure is the indicator that birth is near. This is where everything you've sown in tears becomes harvest. Where every night of wrestling produces wisdom. Where every unseen act of faithfulness brings reward that cannot be taken by man. So lift your eyes. This test will pass, but what it unlocks will last. And when the release comes, you'll understand why I didn't answer sooner, because the release I'm sending is more than you imagined. And now, because you remained, it's yours. The noise has been relentless, hasn't it? The whispering lies, the internal criticism, the looping doubts, all trying to convince you that you're not enough, that you missed it, that I've changed my mind about you. But I have come to silence the chaos. You were never meant to entertain voices I did not send. You've been listening to echoes born from wounds, not truth. Accusation disguises itself as wisdom sometimes. It sounds familiar because it speaks in a tone your past has trained you to accept. It tries to mimic conviction, but it carries condemnation. And I never speak that way. I correct, but I don't shame. I guide, but I don't paralyze. I lift. I don't press down. And right now, I'm clearing the static from your mind so you can distinguish me from the rest. The weight of what's been accusing you was never from me. The inner trial you've been caught in, replaying what you should have done, what you could have said, where you think you failed. It's not justice, it's torment. And I never appointed your thoughts to be your judge. You've given too much authority to internal narratives I never wrote. That's why your spirit has felt heavy even in my presence, because there's been interference. So I am drawing a line now. I'm silencing every sentence spoken in darkness, even the ones you've said to yourself. Words carry weight, and I know you've been trying to sort through them on your own. But this battle isn't yours to fight with logic, it's a spiritual war, and I've already issued my verdict over you. Forgiven, covered, chosen, clean. That's who you are to me. Not what shame calls you. Not what insecurity repeats. And certainly not what fear keeps playing on a loop. I know where you've been. I know every motive, every decision, every slip, every silence. And yet, my voice over your life hasn't changed. My plans for you remain intact. You're not too late. You're not too broken. You're not disqualified. I saw every hidden tear, every inner battle you didn't share with anyone, and I didn't recoil. I stayed. I watched over you while you were at war with yourself. And now, I'm taking authority over that storm. You've confused the enemy's noise for your own thoughts long enough. It ends now. I'm restoring clarity to your inner world. Peace is returning, not because the situation changed, but because you're learning to tune into me again. My voice has never stopped. It's been speaking under the noise, beneath the waves, beneath the self-doubt. And now I'm bringing it to the surface. You'll hear me again, not in the chaos but in the stillness. Not in thunder, but in the quiet pull on your heart. I'm speaking with tenderness, but with power. I'm not just removing the voices. I'm restoring your ability to reject them. You will no longer be tormented by second-guessing. You will walk in confidence, not arrogance, the kind of confidence that comes from intimacy, not perfection. You won't need to keep asking if I'm with you. You'll know. You'll feel the difference. The confusion is lifting. The fog is breaking. Your spirit is being cleared like a sky after the storm, and what remains is clarity. You're not who the accusation said you were. You never were. You are who I say you are. And from this moment forward, that's the only voice you need to agree with. Let me retrain your ears. Let me rewrite the scripts. Every day, I will remind you, not with loud declarations, but with steady love. When you wake, I'll be there. When you falter, I'll still be speaking. When the enemy tries to bring the noise back, you'll recognize it instantly and cast it out. Because once you've heard me clearly, you'll never settle for anything less. My voice doesn't confuse. It calms. It restores. It empowers. And from now on, it will lead you forward. You've been wondering why your heart feels like it's waking up from something heavy, like something dormant has started to rise again, not fully formed but undeniably alive. That's not your imagination, beloved. That's me. I've begun reactivating the blueprints I once whispered when everything was still. I've reignited the quiet fire you thought had flickered out during delay. What you buried beneath survival is now rising through surrender, and this time, it's not going to fade. The stirring isn't random. It's a signal. A signpost that what I once planted is ready to emerge. The waiting season was never a denial of destiny. It was the time I used to anchor you so the vision could grow roots before it bore fruit. And now, those roots have taken hold. I've tested the ground. I've deepened your understanding. I've reshaped your focus. And because you've allowed me to do that work, I am calling you into motion, not frantic movement, but intentional action. The season has shifted, and the atmosphere around your life is starting to reflect it. Where there was stillness, there is stirring. Where there was delay, there is direction. Where things once stood still, they are beginning to align. You'll feel it before you see it. That inner urgency, that holy restlessness, that renewed energy to begin again, that's my hand pulling you forward. The silence you endured was never empty. I was doing more in the quiet than I could have done in noise. I was carving out space for strategies that required stillness. I was downloading wisdom into the soil of your soul so that when the instruction came, you'd be ready to execute with precision. And now, I'm not just whispering direction. I'm giving you tools. I'm assigning tasks. I'm stirring vision with clarity that cuts through confusion. I'm awakening creativity that you thought had dried up. It's all returning, but this time it's stronger, purer, and grounded in my timing. What felt like delay was actually development. You weren't inactive, you were incubating. You weren't forgotten, you were being formed. And now the forming gives way to forward motion. But you must build with me, not ahead of me. The temptation will be to rush, to produce out of relief instead of revelation. Don't do it. Let me guide every piece, every step, every plan. This isn't about speed, it's about stewardship. I'm not interested in seeing you build something impressive. I'm calling you to build something eternal. And that takes patience. It takes sensitivity to my spirit, even when the world tries to pressure you to hurry. You don't need their pace. You need my presence. You don't need permission. You already carry my favor. You don't need to explain the fire inside you. You just need to follow it. I placed that fire there. I protected it through seasons that tried to extinguish it. And now, I am fanning it into a flame that cannot be hidden. This is not a restart. This is a resurrection. The things I'm leading you to build will not only bless you, they will impact territories, unlock lives, and leave legacy. And yes, there will be resistance. Yes, there will be moments of uncertainty. But don't retreat when the pressure rises. Return to the voice that called you. Return to the stirring that began in the secret place. That's where your strength is. Not in public validation, but in private obedience. And as you take each step, I will meet you with provision, with clarity, with alignment. What you start now will grow faster than you expected, not because you forced it, but because I've already gone before you. I've cleared the way. I've opened the space. And I'm assigning angels to surround what we're building together. This is holy ground. So walk boldly. Keep your ears open. Keep your hands open. Keep your heart open. You waited long enough. Now we build. You were not created to live in a constant state of endurance. There's more to your story than holding on. I never intended for your identity to be wrapped in struggle. You've proven your resilience. You've walked through storms with nothing but faith to anchor you. You've shown that your worship is not conditional, that your surrender does not disappear when answers are delayed. But now I'm calling you beyond survival. I'm calling you into fullness, into the manifestation of what I deposited in your spirit before time even began. I didn't form you in the womb just to see you get by. I shaped you with purpose, with territory in mind, with solutions embedded into your very DNA. And now that you've learned how to stand under pressure, I'm inviting you to step into influence with purpose. You won't need to fight every day just to keep what you've already conquered. I am changing the posture of your walk. The season where you constantly felt like you were defending ground is giving way to one where you begin claiming new ground. I'm not calling you to live beneath the weight of constant warfare. I'm calling you to live from the place of victory, to operate in the authority you've received through every battle you've endured. You didn't just come through the fire, you came out with tools, with understanding, with strength that others will need. And now I want to teach you how to thrive. That means no longer just responding to life, but shaping it through the spirit I've placed within you. That means no longer shrinking to make others comfortable, no longer downplaying your anointing, no longer apologizing for the fire I've ignited inside you. I am breathing on the dreams you buried during survival. I am resurrecting the parts of you that were placed on hold. Your vision is not too big. It was just too heavy for the old version of you to carry. But now, you are becoming who I always intended. You're not just healed. You're equipped. You're not just restored. You're commissioned. I didn't bring you this far to maintain. I brought you here to multiply. I'm increasing your influence, expanding your reach, amplifying your voice, not so that you can be seen, but so that I can be revealed through your life. I'm going to use what you thought disqualified you. I'm going to shine through what you once tried to hide. I'm not asking for your perfection. I'm asking for your permission. Will you let me move through you beyond what you're comfortable with? Will you allow me to stretch you into places that require faith before ability? Because thriving isn't about ease, it's about movement. It's about growing into the territory that's been waiting on your arrival. You'll notice it in the days ahead. A fresh boldness, a new level of clarity, a deeper hunger. That's the signal. That's the activation. It means the ground beneath you has shifted. You are no longer in survival mode. You are stepping into stability, into structure, into sustained forward momentum. You are going to thrive spiritually, not just in prayer, but in discernment, in clarity, in revelation. You're going to thrive emotionally, walking free from patterns that used to bind you, moving with maturity that was forged through fire. You're going to thrive relationally, surrounded by those who speak life into you, not confusion. And yes, you'll thrive practically too, because I take care of what I call. I don't launch you into new seasons and leave you unsupported. Provision will meet purpose. Insight will follow obedience. Favor will surround movement. And as you keep walking forward, you'll begin to notice things that once exhausted you will no longer faze you. Things that once confused you will now be clear. That's what thriving feels like. That's where I'm taking you. Not one more day stuck in survival. You've done well. You've endured. But now, it's time to rise. What I am opening now is not based on your resume. It's based on my endorsement. You've disqualified yourself far too often, assuming that the cracks in your story somehow cancel out the calling on your life. But I never chose you because of your perfection. I chose you because of your surrender. Your yes in secret did more in heaven than applause in public ever could. And now, the doors that are unlocking were never meant to open through networking or striving. They are opening because of alignment. My hand is placing you in spaces where your name was never mentioned but your obedience was recorded. And when you enter, you'll feel the tension, the pull to shrink, to explain, to question if you really belong. Don't. Walk in knowing I sent you. Walk in knowing that your scars do not weaken your impact. They amplify it. I am not asking you to impress anyone in these new places. I am asking you to carry my fragrance. When they see you, I want them to feel peace. When you speak, I want clarity to settle. When you move, I want atmospheres to shift. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because you carry what others can't define but desperately need. I've hidden you for a reason, not to waste your life, but to preserve your purity. And now that the time has come, you must stop trying to drag your past shame into these new spaces. It has no place there. The version of you who failed is not the one I'm sending. I'm sending the one who stayed when it was hard. The one who wrestled in the dark and refused to let go of me. The one who stood still while everything screamed to run. That's who you are now, and that's who I'm sending forward. The past had a purpose, but it is not your identity. You are no longer who those moments tried to label. You are no longer under the weight of old decisions. I have written something new over your life, and it cannot be revoked. What matters now is how you walk. Will you carry confidence birthed in communion, or will you continue to enter rooms apologizing for your existence? The ones I'm sending you to are waiting. They won't understand why you seem so familiar, why your voice settles the atmosphere. But it's not familiarity, it's anointing. Don't waste time trying to explain it. Just release it. This is not the season to second-guess what I've already confirmed. I've trained you for this. Not in the way others are trained, not with titles or institutions, but through the wilderness, through the pressing, through the pruning. You're not walking in because you fit the mold. You're walking in because you broke the mold, and I molded you again in my image. You are evidence of what happens when a life stays on the altar. And in these rooms, I'm not just elevating you, I'm advancing my kingdom. There are souls on the other side of your obedience. There are breakthroughs attached to your presence. And yes, the enemy knows it. That's why the warfare intensified before these doors opened. That's why old shame tried to resurface. That's why you felt unworthy right before the invitation came. But those were last-minute attempts to stop you from stepping into ordained territory. Don't fall for it. Don't negotiate with lies I've already overturned. You are not tolerated. You are sent. And when you walk in, know that you are not alone. I go with you. I surround you. I empower you. The authority I've placed on you will speak louder than titles. The oil you carry will outlast trends, and the impact you make will outlive applause. So walk in without hesitation. You've been prepared in private. Now it's time to be positioned in public. And when you speak, don't forget, it's not about being heard. It's about releasing heaven. You've hidden so much of your heart behind layers you thought were necessary. Personas shaped by pain, silence taught by disappointment, and masks you learned to wear so others wouldn't see how deeply you were still bleeding. I saw every layer form. I knew why you felt the need to adapt. I understood why you chose to remain small in moments you were meant to rise. And I never judged you for it. I protected you, even behind the veil. But now, I am lifting it. Not to expose your weakness, but to unleash your fullness. I did not create you to live behind edited versions of yourself. I breathed purpose into the real you. The one who feels deeply. The one who dreams wildly. The one who hears me clearly. The one who had been locked away behind performance and expectation. You've been a shapeshifter too long, adjusting yourself depending on who's in the room. And though it kept you from rejection for a time, it also kept you from freedom. You are not meant to become what others are comfortable with. You are meant to become what I envisioned when I formed you. And to do that, I must peel away the layers that have dulled your brightness. It may feel like unraveling, like the identity you've worked so hard to hold together is slipping. But it's not destruction. It's deliverance. I'm not tearing you down, I'm setting you free. Free from approval addiction. Free from emotional hiding. Free from spiritual suppression. I'm unlocking parts of you that religion silenced, that trauma distorted, that culture misnamed. The real you. the one who worships without needing a microphone, the one who intercedes when no one's watching, the one who dreams with me in the dark. That's who I'm revealing. And as I do, some people will become uncomfortable. They knew the version of you who dimmed your fire to fit their expectations. But I'm not calling you to fit. I'm calling you to shine. The false selves you created for survival cannot follow you into this next move. They'll only hold you back. And though it may be painful, I'm asking you to release them. Not because you failed, but because you've outgrown them. The identity I'm revealing is not fragile. It's not unsure. It doesn't depend on applause. It doesn't bend for manipulation. It's rooted in me, anchored in my love, strengthened by truth, and ready to walk in rooms without shrinking, to speak without stuttering, to live without apology. You no longer have to wonder if you're too much. You're just enough for what I've assigned you to. The anointing I placed on you does not require perfection. It requires honesty. It requires courage. And that means letting me strip away the image management, the emotional disguises, and the spiritual hesitation. You are not who pain tried to turn you into. You are not who the past attempted to trap you as. You are who I've been waiting to reveal. The version of you that knows how to love fiercely, obey immediately, and trust deeply. That's the you I'm raising. And I will continue to peel back layers until the fullness of who I made you to be stands unashamed in the light. Don't fear the unveiling. I will not abandon you during the process. I will be with you in every stretch, every tear, every moment of vulnerability. I will whisper your true name over you until the lies no longer hold power. And when you finally see yourself through my eyes, you'll realize the real you was never something to hide. You were always meant to stand out, to speak up, to rise. And now, with every layer I remove, you're getting closer to becoming unrecognizable, not to me, but to the version of you that fear created. The unveiling has begun, and what emerges will walk in power, not pretense. So let me finish what I've started. I'm not restoring a mask, I'm revealing my masterpiece. You've tolerated too many climates that were never designed to sustain your calling. You've adjusted to surroundings that only fed your insecurities, but starved your purpose. And now, I can no longer allow you to dwell where your destiny is constantly suffocated. You were not born to merely survive in environments that drain you. You were called to walk in places that nourish the fullness of what I've planted in you. That's why I've begun shifting everything around you. The people you once relied on may begin to distance. The comfort zones you built may begin to collapse. The routines you trusted may start to lose their pull. This isn't abandonment. It's alignment. I'm moving things not to hurt you, but to prepare space for what's coming next. You cannot carry the same patterns into the territory I've assigned you. I will not let you drag yesterday's habits into tomorrow's harvest. The shift is not punishment. It is preservation. I am rescuing your focus before it gets diluted. I am recalibrating your perspective so you can see clearly again. You may feel the disorientation at first, like everything familiar is being stripped away, but this is sacred work. I am uprooting what was never meant to grow beside your promise. I am silencing voices that kept you small. I am closing doors that once seemed stable, not because you failed, but because you've outgrown them. And now, your external environment must reflect the internal fire I've reignited. You will begin to crave peace in ways you never have before. Not quiet for quiet's sake, but stillness that holds presence. Conversations that once felt acceptable will suddenly feel too shallow. Rooms that once impressed you will now feel too cramped. It's not arrogance, it's awakening. You're waking up to your assignment, and it requires a different atmosphere. I'm not just calling you to new locations physically, I'm calling you to higher dimensions spiritually. What used to be entertaining will feel distracting. What used to comfort will feel like compromise. You'll feel the pull in your spirit, not because something is wrong, but because something is right. You're entering a new frequency, a place where discernment is sharp, obedience is instant, and clarity is constant. I'm drawing you into circles where your voice is not only heard, but honored. Relationships where your presence doesn't have to shrink. I'm bringing you among those who pray without pretense, who dream without jealousy, who labor without masks. Because the next chapter requires more than gifting. It requires agreement. Atmosphere matters. And I care too much about your mission to let it suffocate under apathy, distraction, or competition. I'm refining your surroundings because they influence your strength. You've fought battles you never needed to fight, simply because you stayed planted where I only meant you to pass through. But that ends now. I'm untangling you from cycles that disguised themselves as comfort. I'm placing you where your spirit breathes again, where your oil flows freely, where your vision isn't questioned, but fueled. And as the shift happens, don't try to hold on to what I'm releasing. Don't call something loyalty if it's actually delay. Don't label something faithfulness if it's actually fear to move forward. I will not bless what you were never meant to keep. And when I release something from your hands, it's only because I have something greater I want to place into them. I'm changing your atmosphere, but it starts with trust. Will you trust me enough to let go of what's no longer fruitful? Will you allow me to prune what looks alive but isn't producing anymore? Because when the shift is complete, you won't just feel lighter. You will feel aligned. You'll look around and see that everything around you matches what I've been stirring within you. The room will match the weight of your voice. The space will match the stretch of your calling. And most importantly, my presence will saturate every inch of it. Because I'm not just changing where you are, I'm preparing where you're going. You've walked long enough relying on instinct and habit, but this next phase demands something sharper. I'm not just teaching you to see, I'm training you to perceive. Because not everything that looks like me is sent by me, and not every opportunity is an assignment. You're coming into a place where the counterfeit will look convincing, where distractions will dress up as blessings, and where detours will disguise themselves as divine delays. This is why I'm fine-tuning your hearing. You must know my voice beyond the noise of pressure, beyond the cries of insecurity, beyond the suggestions of others who mean well but don't hear me like you do. I am increasing your sensitivity so you don't walk blindly into what feels familiar but wasn't authored by me. Your discernment is your safeguard. It is the whisper that will anchor you when everything screams for a reaction. I'm teaching you how to pause when your flesh wants to push forward. I'm teaching you how to walk away without explanation, how to listen more than you speak, how to stay silent when your spirit says this isn't it. And yes, there will be moments when it doesn't make sense to others. They'll question why you said no to something that looked like favor. They'll wonder why you stopped answering certain calls, stopped showing up where you once were celebrated. But don't let their confusion shake your clarity. You don't owe anyone an explanation for obeying me. You owe me your obedience, and that's enough. I'm protecting your energy because what you're carrying now cannot afford unnecessary entanglements. The elevation I'm bringing requires a level of vision that sees through the surface. Not everything that claps for you is for you. Not everything that aligns on paper aligns with your purpose. This is why I've stirred discomfort in places that used to excite you, because you're not called to what's easy, you're called to what's eternal. You're not meant to chase connection, you're called to recognize alignment. Discernment is how you'll know the difference. I'm showing you how to detect the subtle shifts in spirit, how to feel the undercurrent of agendas that aren't pure, how to recognize the absence of peace even when the room is full of praise. It's no longer about what they say, it's about what I reveal. I'm training you to read between the words, to feel what's behind the handshake, to detect the fragrance of motives not surrendered to me. This doesn't mean you become suspicious. It means you become spiritually aware. It means your decisions are no longer driven by desperation, but by direction. You're not looking for doors, you're waiting for me to unlock them. You're not searching for platforms, you're following my presence. This way of living may feel slower at first, but it will save you years. The wrong yes can delay destiny, and I love you too much to let that happen again. It's why I'm stirring your spirit in ways you can't explain, why you feel uneasy around certain people, why your spirit recoils even when your mind can't pinpoint the reason. That's discernment. Don't silence it. Don't ignore it. Don't override it because someone else tells you you're being too cautious. I gave you that spiritual radar to protect the oil you carry. You don't have to explain your discernment. You just have to follow it. And the more you trust it, the louder it will become. Soon, what once confused you will become clear. What once tempted you will lose its pull. What once attracted you will no longer hold appeal. Because as your discernment grows, so does your direction. I'm not just leading you into new places. I'm giving you eyes to see why you're there. You're not entering these next spaces to be abreast. You're entering them to be effective. You're not called to blend in. You're called to move with intention. And that's what discernment is, intentional movement, led by spirit, not sensation. Let me finish tuning you, because the frequency I'm unlocking will make sure your steps never land in shadows again. Amen.